So, my experience with sport started when I was around 5 years old, and my parents put me into a soccer league. It was a co-ed soccer league, and it was pretty much just a bunch of kids running around, kicking soccer balls while the parents were there visiting on the side. There wasn't any intention of me continuing to play soccer. This was really about me being involved in something outside of the house. My parents were keen on having me participate in activities outside of the house. This included other activities, not just sport. My parents got me involved in Girl Scouts, and a lot of other sports, but there were definitely a lot of ways to get me out of the house, and sport was the biggest way that my parents were able to kind of get me involved in either socializing with other kids, as well as just getting me out of the house. So my parents had me, I didn't ever play any typical female sports that we kind of see in our society today. As I said, I played soccer. I did karate. I did do swimming. And I think those were the three sports. Oh, I did basketball as well. So these were really it was kind of very eclectic of kind of just getting me out of the house. And my participation in sport did continue all the way up from when I was 5, continuing up through now, playing soccer, almost 19 years later. But I continued to be involved in sport. I do know that my dad participated in sports when he was younger. He did football and track and field and cross country. So I was always able to talk to him about athletics, but it was actually my mom who initially was the one that got me involved in athletics. As I said before, just as a way to kind of get me out of the house with no real rhyme or reason. I don't really remember a lot of the interactions I had when I was that young. The earliest I can remember having interactions in regard to athletics was when I started getting into middle school. And this is where I really started to notice a difference between kind of that ideal gender role in what we have, where I would play football at nutrition with all the boys, and we'd play basketball, and we'd play this game where we had to throw a tennis ball against the wall and you only got one bounce. And I always remember trying to be the best and be better than the boys or be better than anyone. It didn't really matter if it was male or female. I enjoyed going outside and playing at nutrition and at recess and having fun. I remember one experience that I did have when I think I was in 5th grade or in elementary school at some point, and I was playing basketball with a bunch of the kids in my grade, and I remember another girl in my grade came up to me, and at the time I didn't know what it meant, and I don't know what the purpose of the statement was, but at that time she had called me a fat ass, and I knew that it was a derogatory statement. I knew that it obviously wasn't a nice statement, but I didn't know why she had done it or what the purpose was. I just knew that I was being attacked for some reason. And it was interesting to me because as playing with young boys, there's a lot of comments that get made. And that was the first time I'd ever heard anything related to weight in any sense. Playing with the guys, it was always, oh, you suck, or don't be a bitch. So it was always attacking almost like the person rather than attacking the body. And I think this was my first experience that I had that kind of showed me a little bit of the difference between male and female in sport. And I got a lot of comments growing up about my participation in sport, even from my parents or my grandparents, sorry, where I'd get asked even about just what I would wear and why I was dressing like a guy, and that I wouldn't wear dresses and play with dolls. I'd want to be outside kicking a soccer ball around, and I wouldn't talk at nutrition. So kind of growing up, I experienced this kind of this gender role that I wasn't typically falling into. So I think once I got into high school, I think I really started to pick out the difference, and kind of, well, hearing all these comments that people were making, whether it was my grandparents saying, oh, you're acting like such a guy, simply just because I played a sport outside that wasn't historically seen as a typical female sport, that I was acting like such a guy and I wasn't being a lady. But once I got into high school, I started to kind of see it more so than just these little ear comments. I would wear sweatpants to school with a sweatshirt, and I would wear Nikes. So I didn't dress like a typical female. And fortunately, it never really affected me. And I don't think I've ever thought about it really until now, in regards to just the different way that I was treated and the way that I was expected to act, simply because of my gender role. With kind of being seen as a tomboy, or kind of having that role that I took on, I think a lot of people growing up in high school, a lot of people would comment on me and my best friend being gay and being in a relationship. And I had not come out at this point, and I never really thought much of it. But it's interesting to think about all the comments that were made as a kid, and, you know, growing up and looking at why these comments were made, simply because I was not representative of this societal norm of a female, and kind of deviating from what that's supposed to be seen as, is really interesting to think about today. I did come out my sophomore year of college, and a lot of the comments that I got from most people was, oh, we already knew that, or we knew before you. I think I got it from my best friend. I got it from a lot of other people that I knew. So these were simply comments simply based off of the sport that I played. and the way that I acted, non-associative of my role as a girl. But when I came out in college, I am very fortunate that my teammates were really supportive of me and my parents were really supportive of me. I think I was the only out person on the team at the time, or when I was a sophomore, I think I was the only out person on the team at the time. And what's interesting about being a goalkeeper is you're kind of inherently alone most of the time. So when I'd see all my teammates talking about their relationships and what they were doing, it felt a little weird to me that I was having these interactions with people just simply because I am attracted to women, and I wasn't having conversations with my teammates before, aside from soccer, simply innately as the position that I played in soccer, which I'll talk about in a little bit, how kind of that position kind of influenced the way that I grew up and kind of how my view of things has kind of changed, or kind of my view on and take on sports and kind of individualism. So when I came out in sophomore year, everybody was super supportive. I started talking to people more, which was a little odd for me, that the only reason people saw it necessary to reach out to me was because I spoke about being attracted to women. My junior year of college, we had a transfer student who my coach asked if I would meet with them. And this transfer student was she came from Texas. She attended a very religious school, and we ended up sitting down and we ended up talking for a couple of hours. And she was also gay, and she had been pretty much told by her soccer team to either attend a conversion camp or she has to leave the team. And she ended up leaving the team and coming to our school. But what I find interesting today is the fact that my coach specifically reached out to me to talk to her when she came on a visit. And we ended up becoming roommates, and are still really good friends today. But I found it interesting that my coach specifically asked me to talk to her. And I don't know whether this was because I'd been out and I was the only out person on the team at the time, or the only gay person on the team. But I do wonder if inherently, or in the back of his mind, he decided to put us together simply because of the fact that we're both gay. And that next year, after the two of us were living together, a freshman joined the team, and she ended up living with us. So there were three of us on the soccer team, and all three of us ended up living together. So it just feels that we as a society need to classify people into these different groups based on whoever they are, whoever they like, whatever religion they are. And it seems that we need to classify people into a group. So that's been really interesting to kind of think about, because we didn't think about it at the time. We just kind of acknowledged, oh, okay, we get along. We both happen to be attracted to women. But I never thought about if my coach put us together for that reason. Because there were a whole bunch of other people on our team who were looking for roommates. And he specifically asked me if we could live together, or if I would room with her, which worked out because her and I are best friends now, and so is the freshman that we got to room with. So in regard, as I said earlier, in regard to kind of that socioeconomic class. I'm sorry, I wrote a list of notes here and I got myself lost. Yeah, we'll go with that. In regards to my socioeconomic class, I did notice that when I started youth sport, I did participate in that pay to play. And the older I got and the more competitive I got, the more everything became pay to play. And I did notice that a lot of my friends that played on that youth team or that rec league team were not able to afford this this club team or this pay to play. And they were just as talented, but a lot of them weren't able to participate in that pay to play, and a lot of them actually ended up dropping out of sport before senior year of high school. So that is something that I've been very acutely aware of as I've grown up. Is I'm very fortunate in regards to being supported by my family. My grandparents have worked endlessly. My mom always tells me stories about how her dad on Christmas Eve or during Hanukkah, they'd always be coming back late and they'd always be on the phone, constantly working. And my dad, he's constantly traveling for work and he's working his butt off. So I've been very fortunate to be able to be supported by a family financially in that area. And I think because of that, I've been able to get to the place that I am in sport. It's funny because you put all this money into club teams and then you hope that you make a college team that gives you money back. So it's almost a return on investment where if I put this amount of money into this pay to play sport, my kid or whomever is going to get into a good college, and that college is going to pay for them to play and pay for their education. And I didn't have a scholarship my freshman year. I did have to work to get a scholarship. I came in on no scholarship my freshman year. And if I don't know how things would have turned out if I'd been in a different financial situation. So it's hard to think about because I don't see the way that people see sport simply because I am fortunate enough to have money and a lot of people are not in that situation. I work as a coach right now, and the amount of money that these parents are paying for their kids to train for an hour is almost insane. There's no just rec league that you can get together. Everything's club based and you have to try out for it. And if you don't make the tryouts, then you just don't get to play, which is astounding to me because I remember being able to just sign up for a team and we would just be able to play. But not having that opportunity for some of these kids I see, it kind of astounds me. So that's a lot of history in regards to kind of my sport. Currently, I am still playing soccer. I just joined the semi-pro team here in Green Bay, which I'm really excited about. But once again, a lot of it, I mean, it costs a lot of money to be able to play and to be able to have these opportunities. And I'm fortunate enough that if I do get into a difficult place, that my parents or my family is going to be able to help me out, where some of these athletes on this team might not be able to play. They might have made the team, but they might not be able to play simply because of their socioeconomic status. One thing that I am interested to see happen is, I did grow up in a very liberal area in Southern California. So being gay and being Jewish was never of any concern. But moving out here to the Midwest, I've had comments before, and I've had a lot of homophobic comments before, and I'm interested to see what happens and if anybody's going to react the same on this soccer team as compared to my experience with my undergrad. But I'm fortunate enough that I get to keep playing a sport that makes me happy and play a sport that I love. So this was a little bit of my sport history. Yeah.